if someone is speaking from superiority, they are not speaking from oneness. They are speaking from a duality. I'm feeling a bit bubbly right now because I had an insight that I think I've finally been able to put into words. And it's about the difference between speaking from truth or oneness and speaking about truth and oneness. And this has been a challenge for me on the spiritual path, or the path of self-inquiry, or trying to understand the world. And it involves listening to all the layers of ourselves, or humanness. And people can say the right things. Like, they can say words of wisdom, but we can still have a reaction to what they say that is not really aligned with what their words are saying. So this is an invitation to trust our somatic system, like to trust our bodily reactions, our nervous system, because it contains so much wisdom. It can read people on levels that our mind cannot do. And what do I mean by this? Well, words are just one layer of the truth. It's only one layer of how we listen to other people. And there's a lot of people speaking about spirituality, speaking about truth, talking about oneness. May they call it universal consciousness, or Buddha nature, or love, or Christ, or God. But they're not speaking from that insight. They're not speaking from truth. And one level our system can detect that on is that if someone is speaking from superiority, they are not speaking from oneness. They are speaking from a duality. So if you have a teacher or just a friend on the path who makes you feel less than, or makes you feel judged, it is likely not about you. I mean, it could be a trauma that's been triggered in you. But there's a risk in assuming that straight away, because it could also be that our nervous system is picking up subtle layers in the communication that's happening. Because if someone is coming from superiority, or a sense of, I know, let me teach you the truth in this, not let me point you to where you can have a look for yourself, but rather let me teach you, let me tell you the truth. It comes often as a subtle superiority. This is very interesting, because if you're coming from superiority, you are by definition coming from duality. If it's all one, there's no room for superiority. All is equal because it's just one. So if there is a sense of superiority, that means that there is a division, there is a separation, there's duality. So I guess the question then is, what does it feel like when someone is coming from truth, is coming from oneness? And in my experience, that cannot be faked. We can fake a lot of things, but we cannot fake which internal posture, what position we are speaking from. We can change our words. We can make them sound sweet. We can make them sound powerful. But where we stand, where these words kind of have their grounding, we cannot fake. And other people's nervous system pick up on that. So when you speak from oneness, by definition, you are speaking from love. And what do I mean by that? Well, for me, and for non-dual teachings, often, or yeah, non-duality in itself suggests that everything's one. Everything comes from oneness. And the way that oneness is felt is love. That's what we feel in the absence of separation, in the absence of perceived duality. So if someone's speaking to you and they are not loving you, they cannot come from oneness. They come from duality. That doesn't mean that their words cannot be supportive to you. That doesn't mean that what they are talking about is actually a lived experience, is something that has value, and we can listen to those words. But if we think that they know the truth, therefore they have a right to be superior, they have a right to speak in a condescending energy flow, because they have realized something and I haven't, and we make excuses for that, or we justify that as part of a teaching structure, then I think we are deluding ourselves. And I think that it's a common trap to fall into, and that perhaps is the foundation for added suffering in spiritual circles. And once we can remove that, when we can trust that clearly, that if I don't feel like the other person is coming from love towards me, there is something off in where they're coming from. That doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make their words untrue. But perhaps that shouldn't be my North Compass. That shouldn't be where I try to realign myself completely with. Because they are not completely calibrated themselves. And it's not so easy that you do this once. If a person once come from love, they will always keep coming from love. No, probably not, because they're human. We all are human. What it really does is that it puts back responsibility, or we reclaim our own authority. We have this absolutely super sensitive divine instrument, like a well of knowledge in our somatic system, like in our fascia, in our nervous system, in our gut, around our breathing patterns, the way our body tenses up. That has a value, and we can refine our relationship with that and trust it. But what happened for me, anyway, is that I also carry a lot of trauma, or I used to, or I still do, or whatever words fit, that sometimes makes the system react when the perceived threat is perhaps not happening in the now. Like, for instance, it could be if someone raises their voice, my system thinks that I am in danger now, and it reacts to that. So that's a trauma response. The only thing that happened is that the person raised their voice. It might have not been directed at me. It might have not come from anger or a threat of violence. But my response is not in relationship to the now. And that can be perfectly valid. So I shouldn't necessarily trust that reaction that might come from trauma. But then it's easy to think that any activation that the mind doesn't quite understand is a trauma response. So basically, then we discard our authentic reactions to what is actually happening in the moment. Because in some situations, a person might react by raising their voice, and they are violent, and my nervous system is responding to this present moment. And if I'm used to always scan for trauma, I don't listen to my nervous system being this intelligent being of reading cues in the room that I'm actually in right now. So how do we know if it's trauma or if it's present moment wisdom? That's a good question. I don't have the overall answer to that. But what is clear for me is that the more time I spend looking at my traumas and understanding them and learning to decipher what's coming up, is it coming with old stories? Then it might be a trauma. Is it scary to look at what's coming up? It might also be a trauma. Anything that happens in the present moment is usually not so terrifying to look at least for me. This is my experience. So why am I saying this? The reason I bring up trauma in relationship to trusting your nervous system is because once you go into the spiritual path, you might embark on healing your body mind, of releasing tension, and you get very focused on the trauma reactions, which they have been tremendously valuable for me. But the shadow side of that is that we do ignore the wisdom that our nervous system gives us in the moment. And trusting a teacher or trusting a friend or anyone who carries a message to us, if we rely on listening to our minds only, we miss this source of wisdom that our bodies or our nervous system carries. And that can make us trust the wrong people too much. We discard our own authority, or we think that we're not capable of reading this person correct because we think that they have seen more, they have more wisdom than we have. And maybe they have, but anyone coming from superiority isn't aligned with the absolute truth, isn't at one with the world, regardless of what they say. Yeah. The message of love, awakening, isn't just happening on the mind level. That's just one of the layers that awakening finds its way. And it's beautiful and it's valuable. But there are more layers that get realigned, and one of them is the heart. And then there's clarity and love. Truth in words and in your body. Yeah. So be gentle with yourself and don't give away your own truth. You carry the capacity to see truth. No one else can see it for you. You can see it for yourself. And don't let anyone convince you that they're superior to you. They are not. I guarantee you that. Regardless of what they've seen, they are not superior to you. Yes, living in a world where we together carry truth. Each and every one of us. We rely on ourselves. We navigate our own intuition, our own center. We are our own compass, our own North Star. Makes no sense to be a compass and a North Star, but you know what I mean. We guide according to our own wisdom. Yeah. Thank you for joining me on this exploration and honoring of truth and love. See you next time.